Well, Jonnie, thanks for hosting us in Lisbon, by the way. So, myself, Dan, a couple of our other friends were over there and you're living there and took us to a nice, I think, lunch, which was great. But let's talk about deBridge now, what you guys are building. What's the product or service? Like, how would the average crypto user interact with it? I've interacted with it. I love it. I think it's the best bridge out there, but kind of give us the whole company overview.
I think it's quite an interesting time for deBridge, but also for DeFi, right? Because I think very rapidly, like probably next year, with the help of deBridge, but also other teams as well, it's going to move from a chain first kind of like paradigm to a token first paradigm. So eventually, instead of users going and saying, hey, okay, I've got gas on Solana and I want to buy X asset on Monad or whatever, right? Like there's many frictions that they have to take on to think about that whole journey. And like mentally they're thinking about the chains a lot, right? Because even the experience of bridging and you feel like, okay, I'm like venturing over into like traveling to a new country.
It feels like that very much so. And you get stuck in one and then you have to make sure you have gas on the other chain to get over, and it's a whole so how does your product help with that?
Until now, deBridge has been really focused on building the best. Initially deBridge was started because the founders, Alex and Yarrow, they were doing a lot of arbitrage between Ethereum L1 and some like new L2s that were launched back in 2020, 2021, around there. And they kept like getting blocked by centralized exchanges, like slow withdrawals, random KYC stuff for no reason. And then they thought, okay, like we need to solve this problem, right? So deBridge was always meant to be like the best experience for cross-chain trading, right? So like the paradigm of bridging has evolved a lot, so people are now like a lot less worried about, getting bridge anxiety. And so, like deBridge, our kind of core business and our core users is for power users. So people moving like, upwards of 50 or 100K at a time. Either like a bridge, like moving one asset between chains, but often just making a swap. So like next year in particular, we're going to really change the UX a lot. So it's going to be closer to this like token first paradigm. So it'll feel like doing like a same chain swap on Solana, for example, which has like really nice UX, and you'll be able to trade just whatever tokens you want without really having to worry about like juggling gas balances and
right.
Yeah.
And from like a super high level, like non-technical perspective, like other chains or other bridges typically work by like you deposit funds in an escrow and then there's like some checks and balances that happen and then those funds eventually move to the new chain. You guys have a much faster, kind of cleaner, better solution. What's the difference in the architecture there? There's like market makers that are involved in kind of like bidding and auctioning components, right? How does that work?
Initially, when deBridge launched in 2022, like February, I think it was built on liquidity pools, which was kind of like the go-to approach at the time. But after like a bunch of, hacks and stuff in the space, not on deBridge, but more broadly in the space, we kind of thought there has to be a better way to do this right. So we came up with this idea of at the time, like the term intent didn't exist. Like it's very common like word now, right? But we called it a liquidity network. So basically it's very simple. Maybe very complex to build, but very simple. Like if you have one Sol and you want to swap it for like BNB or something, like basically you say if you use the deBridge app, you say, okay, I'm going to accept the market price for this swap. I will like accept this price of this amount of BNB from whoever can send it to me the fastest on the destination chain, which is in this case BNB chain. So it's just like a cross-chain exchange basically. And then your Sol will get locked into an isolated smart contract for less than a second, like basically until you receive the BNB. And then deBridge the deBridge infrastructure will validate that you received it, and then it releases your SOL to the private market maker. And the private market makers are competing on speed. So like it's like a reverse RFQ because the user sets the price.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, I know you're over there in DeFi land, right? But we're at Helium's Beach House event here. I know DePIN is something that has been on a lot of people's minds recently. We're here at Solana Breakpoint as well, and Solana is kind of like the home of DePIN. So I'm curious, like your level of awareness about the DePIN sector, what's been going on, what you think of the Helium project, all of that.
Yeah, I think it's actually like a really, really interesting part of DeFi, right? And it's interesting to see projects like Helium that are kind of combining some of the primitives and experiments happening in DeFi, but with real world products and infrastructure and business logic. So like, yeah, I was just talking to the Helium guys before actually, and I think they were saying that their mobile network is getting like 2,000 new signups a day.
Yeah.
500,000. I can't remember what figure.
I'm one of them, like the mobile subscribers. Like,
yeah.
So like that's my cell phone plan basically.
That's awesome. Like,
yeah,
that's sick. And I think it's like one of those things where like, I feel like the DePIN projects like Helium, when they launched like a few years ago, somehow like they didn't seem like as sexy, like as like the new liquidity protocol X or Y, Z or whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, it seems like they're running like a very serious business, and like actually getting some serious adoption. So yeah, I think it's really impressive. And actually, I think like if you're early in crypto, it's not like adoption isn't going to feel like it does now, right? It's not like everyone's walking around talking about crypto and DePIN and stuff. It's like, oh no, like which mobile provider do you use? Oh yeah, I use Helium,
For sure. There's also this idea in DePIN that, has been put forth recently. That's kind of the idea of DePIN's going multi-chain with their projects and their tokens. So, there's a lot of benefits to doing that, or you can tap into like new user bases, new pools of liquidity, but there's also some drawbacks in terms of like, having multiple tokens, trying to reconcile those with exchanges. So I'm curious what you think of this idea or this notion that maybe some DePINs are taking their tokens multi-chain. And I think there's a world in which deBridge factors into that and simplifies things across chains. But curious, what you think about the kind of multi-chain model for DePINs.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the usage case and stuff. But like, I think that our goal at deBridge, like, so some interoperability providers are focused on like the custody side. So like creating, wrapped versions of let's say HNT and then deploying it on different chains. Whereas deBridge is more focused on trading and making the experience of being able to swap between native assets like so kind of good and seamless that like, it's a different way to kind of solve the problem. There's probably some usage cases where you want a wrapped version, for example. Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, like I think that if you think about like the learning curve, right? Say you're Helium and you have your token on Solana, right? HNT, and you want, it's part of like your fee economy or whatever, and you want like as many people, you want users to be able to participate in the network. Or I'm not 100% sure about how Helium works, but on that level. But like, yeah, imagine you want HNT to be available. Okay, let's say you're trying to break, like right now the Helium's quite active in the US, right? So say you want to break into the Asian markets, and people are super active on BNB chain there, right? You have BNB wallet or whatever, right? And you want them to be able to just participate easily and have a good onboarding experience. So yeah, you want them to be able to just buy HNT using their BNB and have as little friction as possible in that process. So yeah, I think it's and it just comes back to like that token first kind of paradigm. So yeah, I think I mean, it's true for any kind of vertical in DeFi, but I think that's where we're heading. Yeah.
I think I've even done it before myself, but you could buy HNT on Solana with funds on Ethereum or funds on BNB chain or anywhere else through deBridge, right? So you guys facilitate that kind of trading, and then you can receive the HNT tokens in your Phantom wallet on Solana basically immediately. So it's a great user experience, and appreciate you guys building that.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have an integration in Phantom. So yeah, like Because I think, you know, the reality is like, for example, like our app is mostly for power users, people who want like a lot of control and over the execution and everything. So like, you know, we have integrations like in Phantom. So say there's just some user that wants to, they have funds on Base and they want to buy HNT, they can actually do that via deBridge on the back end in Phantom Wallet already.
Well, cool. That's all I got for you, but thanks for joining me.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Me.